Hi, this is Joel from CompanySights, the headcount benchmarking platform where you can accurately and quickly benchmark your workforce. In this video, I'll walk you through a full demo, including what it's for, how to use it, and other tips to help you get the workforce insights that you need. Okay, let's start our benchmark search, which is on an empty dashboard at the moment, but that will change over the course of this demo. The first thing that we need to do is select an industry, which we can do here. As you can see, there are many different industries, 54 in total, which provides our users with a comprehensive list to choose from. And I will select the example industry here. Boom, the benchmark overview has appeared, which includes the criteria for the sample set that we are filtering. You can see that it only includes the industry so far, but it will continue to populate as we add more filters. Then here on the right hand side is a scatter plot graph showing us the filtered benchmark samples. They are presented using annual revenue on the y-axis here and the total number of employees on the x-axis here. There are 180 companies, or samples, as I like to refer to them, in the example industry. The number of samples will always be shown by the n equals symbol that you can see here. The idea is that you filter the benchmark data to reach the minimum number of samples that you are comfortable with. When I was a consultant at EY, we typically required a minimum of 5 samples, but other users might look for a minimum of 10 or 20 samples. It's completely up to you, but know that it is a trade-off between having the most specific data using the filters and having a sample size that is large enough to be meaningful. Just so you know, with CompanySights, you need a minimum of 5 samples to see the benchmarks. If your filters are too specific and you don't see any results, just update or remove some filters until you do. Another thing to note with this graph is that you can remove individual samples by clicking them. This is useful if you already have set your filters on the left-hand side, but still notice 1 or 2 outliers that you want to remove from the sample set. If you accidentally remove a sample, then you can click here to add it back, or click the refresh button to reset the benchmark samples based on the data filters that you have chosen on the left-hand side. Now let's add some data filters. The first filter after the industry is the HQ region, which is referring to the region where the sample companies are headquartered. With our company being based in the UK, I will choose Europe. Right, the next filter is the revenue range, where I typically start with $100 million below and $100 million above the company being benchmarked. In this case, our company made $200 million revenue in the last financial year. So I will set a minimum of $100 million and a maximum of $300 million. As a general rule of thumb, it's best to start with a larger revenue range and narrow it down from there. The next filter is the net income margin, which is commonly referred to as the bottom line margin or net profit after tax as a percentage of revenue. It's useful if you want to isolate benchmark samples that have a certain level of profitability. Also know that we don't have net income margin data for all of our samples, so you may want to include samples without margin data by clicking this checkbox here. For this demo, we want to include benchmark samples with a net income margin of 0 to 19%, so we will select these 2 checkboxes. From here, the next filter is the range of total employees in the company. Our company had an average of 600 employees during the last financial year, so I'll input a range of, say, 200 to 1,000 employees, which is 400 either side of the 600 number. Then lastly, we can select the ownership type of the benchmark samples. As our company is privately owned with no external investors, we will select private non-PE, which stands for non-private equity. So that's it for the filters. Super easy. You can add as many or as few as you like. Remember that the more filters you add, the more specific your sample set will be, with a minimum of 5 samples required to see the benchmarks. Let's now look at subject inputs, which refers to the information about the organization that you are benchmarking. This could be your client company if you are a consultant, the target company if you are an investor looking to acquire a business, or it can be the company that you work for if you are a HR or finance professional. The key benefit of adding this information is to gain real-time workforce insights which you will see when we select the benchmark metrics. So in this demo, our company is called NextGen, and its revenue is $200 million with 600 employees. Next, we will input the employees by function here, which are finance is 22, HR is 9, IT. Notice how you can hover over the function to see the activities included in that function. It's super useful. So IT is 6, legal is 7, marketing 35, procurement 5. Just so you know, I prepared these earlier. Product development is 26, quality is 10, sales and customer service is 180, and in supply chain operations, we have 300 employees. Great. So the next are the employees by country, which are UK with 457 employees, then the US with 53 employees, India also with 53 employees, and Germany with 37 employees. Then we have the other employee inputs, which include the annual employee turnover. That was 94 employees in the last year. New hires in the last year totaled 112, and the average tenure of employees was most recently calculated at 2.4 years. Great. Well, this section is also optional, so you can input as much or as little as you like, with the key benefit being access to real-time insights for the organization that you're benchmarking. Let's move on to the benchmark metrics that we will use to evaluate the NextGen workforce. The first two are functional benchmarks, with revenue per function employee typically being used for commercial type functions, such as sales, customer service, and marketing. These are functions where revenue is seen as the underlying driver of headcount. I'll also select all to get the revenue per employee benchmark and the finance function, where it can be argued by some that revenue is also the key headcount driver. The other metric is function as a percentage of employees, which I will now select for all of the functions. The next group of metrics are typically used to identify offshoring opportunities in a workforce. I'll select both for this demo. Then the last set of metrics is turnover as a percentage of employees, new hires as a percentage of employees, and the average tenure of employees. Now let's analyze the results, starting with an overview of the revenue per employee graph. On every graph, including this one, the 4 blue columns are the benchmark results, with the first column being the benchmark average, the next being the 25th percentile, also known as the top quartile. Then it's the median, and finally the 75th percentile, also known as the bottom quartile. When there is subject input data for the company that we are benchmarking, then it is shown as a 5th column at the end. In this case, it is for our company NextGen. So we can see that our company has a revenue per employee of $330,000, which is in the benchmark mid-range from the 25th percentile to the 75th percentile. This is good news, as it means NextGen is producing a standard amount of revenue based on the number of employees it has, when compared to similar companies in our industry. At a total employee level, we look okay, but we are at the lower end of the mid-range, so there probably are opportunities within the workforce to improve headcount efficiency. The next graph shows the revenue per finance employee, where we can immediately see that NextGen is in the red zone, meaning that each finance employee is attributed to less revenue than that of the 75th percentile from the benchmark samples. This suggests that our finance function may be heavy. If you're unsure of which sub-functions and activities are included in any particular function, you can hover over the information circle here. We can see that the finance function includes things like accounting, financial consolidation and reporting, and so on. Then if you click this circle, the list of activities for all of the functions in your industry will be downloaded. You can see all of the functions and their activities here. The other two revenue benchmarks suggest that our sales and customer service function is okay, and the same for marketing. Moving on down to the next group of metrics, we can see that the finance as a percentage of total employees is also red, which supports our initial findings from the revenue benchmark that the finance function appears to be heavy. This is also the case for legal and product development. All of these functions should be investigated further, as opportunities to improve headcount efficiency in these functions may exist. On the other hand, we can see that our IT and procurement functions appear light relative to benchmarks, based on the green column. This suggests that the function is either efficient or that it's understaffed. Based on my experience, a quick conversation with someone in that team can usually identify which one it is. Moving on to the employees by country cost type, we can see that NextGen is in the mid-range of employees in high and low cost countries. If you haven't input your company data, then you can click here to download the country mapping by cost type, which will allow you to compare your company to the benchmarks on a like-for-like basis. The turnover and average tenure of employees is also red, which suggests high turnover and employees that are only working for short periods of time at the company. This isn't such good news. It suggests that there are problems within the workforce culture, and they should be investigated and improved on. Now, if we scroll back up to the top, we can toggle the benchmark metrics to be presented as the number of employees. This feature is super useful because it allows me to see what the difference is between our company and the benchmarks based on the number of employees. For example, we can now see that the benchmark median in finance is 11 employees, while our company NextGen has 22 employees in finance. This suggests that the opportunity to reduce headcount in this function is roughly 10 heads. If we scroll down to the legal function, the difference is a few employees, and in product development, it is also around 10 heads. So just like that, we've identified 3 functions in the company that have the potential to be improved, and now we can see the size of that improvement, which will help increase the overall headcount efficiency in the business. Back up to the top, users can also toggle to hide or show the subject company if they want to. Now, once we have the benchmarks that we want, we can come over to the File menu and save it here. Just type the file name and click Save As. Then it will show up on our list of reports here. You can save over the original report by clicking the icon here, and you can delete a report by clicking the trash icon here. To download the benchmark data, you can click here. While we wait, it's worth noting that the downloaded file will reflect whatever metrics and toggles we have selected on the screen. So if you click to show the subject, then a column will be included in the downloaded CSV file for the subject. And if the employee toggle is selected, then all of the benchmark data will be presented as employees. Great. Let's now have a look at the downloaded Excel file to understand the format. Here we can see that each row is a benchmark metric with 19 rows for the 19 metrics that we have selected. Then we can also see that each column is either a filter or the benchmark data itself. Users typically use the downloaded data to perform further analysis in Excel or create their own graphs in PowerPoint. You can do whatever you want with it. Back on the dashboard, you can also click New to start a new benchmark search and do it all over again. So that's everything in the File menu. On the top right hand side, you can click here to raise a ticket for our customer support team. In some cases, this will be labeled contact, and in other cases, you will see a third button for your account to manage your billing and subscription. And the last button on the dashboard is to log out, which will end this demo. I hope that you now have a solid understanding of how to use CompanySights and can appreciate how powerful it is in the right hands.
Please reach out via the email in the description below if you have any questions. Otherwise, happy benchmarking.